Hey friends, and welcome to the channel. Today's going to be a little coffee chit chat about nutrition and a little bit of mindset behind nutrition. I love talking about the nutrition science, but I honestly think a lot of it comes down to your mindset and finding habits, actions, and a good healthy outlook on life to help shape your health and nutrition and fitness goals. Today I want to talk a little bit about that, oddly enough, based on one of my tarot readings that I did this week. So don't judge me. Yes, sometimes I read my tarot cards. I have the Wild Unknown tarot deck. It's super cool. If you're interested, I can leave it in the description below. But essentially, one of my interpretations from my readings this week was the concept of not downplaying the simple and not overlooking things that are right in front of you. Also thinking of how are you getting in your own way and how are you making something more challenging than it needs to be. That's kind of the gist of the reading that I had this week. And that made me think a lot of nutrition and health goals and some of the clients that I've seen in the past of self-blocking from reaching their goals and making things too complicated, and so they stay stuck in a mindset of negativity and what can't be done versus what they can do in the moment and how they can build upon that. So I want to talk a little bit today about that. And trust me, I love all the nutrition science and fun stuff like that, but I think that there's something to be said about how important the mindset piece is and just your determination and ability to navigate things that come up in life, chapters of life, and staying consistent. I think that is really one of the harder parts of nutrition, not necessarily knowing all of the crazy ins and outs of nutrition. I think, just to be clear, I think the harder part would probably be to learn all of the crazy ins and outs of the nutrition science. But the thing that gives you the most bang for your buck is knowing the basics of nutrition and then knowing how to actually actionably implement those things, if that makes any sense at all. Let's just get into a couple of the prompts that I want to talk with you guys about today that I think will help you get further in your own nutrition, fitness, health, and wellness goals. The first prompt that I have for you is, what are some ways that you're getting in your own way with nutrition or fitness? What are some ways that you're getting in your own way? This is sometimes a hard question to ask yourself. We don't like to think of the things that we're doing wrong, and I don't encourage you to dwell on this, but I do think it's an important thing to identify what things are holding you back right now. I'll give you a couple examples from my own life, and maybe that'll help you prompt some ideas, but make sure to drop below what your answers are to these questions that I'm going to ask today. So one example for me has been in the postpartum era. I'm 11 months postpartum, and I was struggling at the beginning with just finding a consistent exercise schedule. I was like, okay, do I do it when Leo naps? Do I do it when he's awake? What's the perfect time? And, long story short, I ended up finding that during his naps was better for me to do the more deep work, like computer work, and having him awake and doing exercise was just easier for me. But I had some clients that I was working with pre-Leo, when I was still pregnant, that were really having a hard time in a similar era of life. They had a newborn at home and they just couldn't find the time to exercise. And I think this is not to judge that person that was struggling with this, because I think every postpartum era is totally different, and my healing journey with Leo was really, really, luckily pretty simple. Spilling coffee on myself. Luckily pretty relatively simple, I want to say. It was vaginal delivery. I healed pretty quickly, and I was feeling pretty lucky for that. Anyway, I think the point is not, is it better to do it when he's napping or when he's awake? I think the point is you have to find something that works for you and that's easiest for you. For me, I found that it was easier to have him in the pack and play or have him doing tummy time while I did my workout, and just let it happen, and have it be this imperfect exercise routine, and let go of needing to do everything like super quick and, you know, without pausing my workout videos, stuff like that. Letting go of all of that and making it work was what it came down to. Whereas you can get in your head about everything of like, oh, I can't work out when my kid is awake, or I can't work out when they're asleep. What about the chores that I have to do? I can't do this and this because of that. There's, of course, relevant reasons to counter, oh, do I have time to work out or not? But the point is that maybe that mindset of, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, is you getting in your own way in that moment. Another example for me was meal prep. So, you know, I'm calling out an old client on the last one, so I'll call myself out on this one. I was making meal prep so much harder than it needed to be. I was just holding it up in my head as this big thing that had to be perfect. And then guess what? It literally never happened. I didn't meal prep. I didn't even meal plan. What I like to do is prep lunch and breakfast and sometimes snacks. And then for dinner, I like to plan ahead, not actually prep ahead. So I was making it this thing that had to be perfect to the point where I wasn't even doing it at all. And that was making it so I was really exhausted at the end of the day because I was skipping meals, like not breastfeeding. Nutrition and keeping up with your needs when you're breastfeeding is a lot harder than like normal nutrition. So I feel like I was eating regularly. It's not that I was like totally starving, but I was just eating like what I would normally eat pre-Leo, and it wasn't enough. And I wasn't able to notice that until the end of the day because, I don't know, the day went by and I was just absolutely not prepared for eating regular and consistent meals and the calorie needs that are required of me postpartum. So anyway, all of that to say, I was making it so much harder. I was making all sorts of excuses in my head, like it had to be when Leo was napping, but when Leo was napping, I was busy with other stuff. And then when he was awake, it was too hard to do all of the meal prepping stuff. So what I did with that was essentially, I just, instead of like thinking it through and trying to overanalyze everything about meal prep, I literally just did the most simple meal prep I could think of. So I did some tuna salad, I did overnight oats, and then I also did some protein energy bites. And it literally took me like 20 minutes to prep all of those things. And that whole time I was just skipping meal prep entirely because I said to myself that it was too hard. So I think for me, that one was just like jumping into it, and then also like throwing the excuses aside and just taking action, and also simplifying and making it easier for myself. So I didn't pick these elaborate meals that took hours to make. I said tuna salad is good enough for me for lunch, and overnight oats is good enough for me for the next 3 days. I made it so easy that it was hard to make an excuse about it. Again, this isn't to say that excuses are like making you a bad person or anything like that. You should feel no shame. It is very human to throw up excuses for things that, you know, we feel like are a challenge in our lives. That's just part of life. So never feel like you have to be perfect. Trust me, I am not either. And meal prep is one example of that. So point number one is, in what ways are you making your goals more difficult than they need to be? And number two is, how can you simplify those things? So for exercise, maybe instead of doing 30 minutes and making yourself do a super structured workout, you can say, I can simplify this and make it 15 minutes instead. Or I can do 3 10-minute spurts of exercise with my little one, or, you know, whatever situation it is. And that's it. That's my 30 minutes a day. It doesn't have to be all in one go. You have to be a little bit flexible with your mindset of what that looks like for you to make it happen sometimes. Especially as a new parent, I am learning that flexibility is absolutely key. For meal prep, maybe it's picking simpler recipes, Maybe it's putting a timer on the clock and just saying, okay, for 15 minutes, I'm going to meal prep. And whatever happens, happens. If I only cook one thing, great. If I cook two things, great. And finding other ways to like simplify that prep even further, like pre-cut fruit, pre-cut vegetables, frozen vegetables, things like that. Things that make your life easier really helps. So what's one thing that you can make easier in your life? And list out 1 to 3 ways under each goal that you have of how you can make it easier. I think sometimes we have this like complex around making things simple and easy, and we feel like because it's easier, it's less important, or because it's less hard, it gives less return. But the thing that you have to keep in mind is if you don't do it at all, then it's not giving you any value in your life. So doing the thing is more important, even if it's 10 minutes of exercise versus 30. 10 minutes is better than 0 minutes. Just keep that in mind and make sure to share below what is one way you're holding yourself back and making things harder, and what's one way you're gonna simplify. The next thing that I want you to keep in mind too is if you're like, okay, Katie, I have tried and it's just not working. Maybe you're trying to exercise 5 times a week and it's just, no matter how much you simplify, that goal in particular is not working for you. First I would say if you're trying 5 times a week or something like that, try taking the quantity down first. So say 3 times a week or 2 times a week. I think that is much simpler than trying to do it max effort, first and foremost, especially if you're just getting started. Try lowering the amount of times you do it per week. Try lowering the amount of time that you're allotting yourself each time you do it. So like 10 minutes instead of 30. You can make it fun in different ways, so you can make it a little more simple in that respect. Pairing it with other things can also help. So like sometimes with meal prep, I just tack it on to other things that I'm doing that day. So if I'm already in the kitchen doing dishes, or I'm already in the kitchen making lunch, sometimes I'll just make double of lunch, and then that's how I make it easier. There's a lot of different ways you can make it easier, but if it's still not working, what you need to think of next is, okay, how can I shift my focus to something more productive in this moment? So there's not always a way that we can bombard ourselves with exactly the goals that we want and achieve all of them, right? So you can have a million different goals all at one time, but I think that it's really important to simplify that goal list so you can actually prioritize things. I don't think that we can get a whole lot more than 3 to 5 goals at a time done, and that's just the way that life is. I'm a very goal-oriented person, so that's a hard thing for me to be okay with, but focus on a couple so you can master them, and then once those are second nature, then you can move on. So what I would tell someone, like for example, the exercise goal, if exercise is just not happening, no matter if you simplify it or say 1 day a week, 10 minutes, it's still not happening, I would beg the question of how important is this goal to you? It may be super important, and to that I would say keep working on it. Keep it as simple as possible, 1 time a week, 10 minutes, and add on to that. But if it's still not possible, maybe you need to shift gears to something that is more tangible in the moment, something that's more front and center that you can tackle and build confidence off of, and then move back to the exercise goal. Because I don't think there's a whole lot of benefit to dwelling on the fact that exercise isn't happening, and then just, making yourself feel bad week to week when it doesn't pan out. I would focus on things that you can do, that you feel confident in doing, and that you also desire to do. So maybe you feel more confident in meal prep, or maybe you feel more confident in getting your steps in, or maybe you feel more confident in just prioritizing, just taking your daily supplements that help you with some of the symptoms that you're trying to alleviate. The basics are always better to get down first, and then you can get a little more advanced in your health and wellness achievement goals. You can think of this as a bonus or just as something that maybe you're thinking of additionally to some of the prompts that we mentioned earlier. So what ways can you shift that energy to prioritize 2 to 3 to maximum 5 things in your life right now? So you can write a big long list of things and then cut that list down to 5 or less. And then once you tackle those, you can tackle the other half of the list later. All right, well, let me know if you enjoyed this coffee chat and let me know your answers in the comments below. And if you'd like to do more of like kind of journal prompt coffee chats like this one, where I have a topic and then give you some ideas to marinate on yourself, I think it's kind of fun. I really like kind of the nutrition therapy side of things. I think that really what it comes down to is a lot of mindset shifts and habit changes to actually get to our goals. So, while I always love the nutrition side of things, I want to help you actually implement those things. And so that's where I find that this helps the most. So let me know your thoughts and be sure to subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel. We're almost at 4,000 subscribers, so I'm super excited. And I guess I'll wrap it up for now. Thanks so much for supporting this channel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.